What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I am talking about the deck that I used for most of my Players Cup 3 qualifying events, and I'll be talking about the list and maybe a couple changes I might make going into the top 256 phase of the Players Cup 3. Before we get into this, shout out to PotonStore.com, the best place for you to get PTCGO codes, and be sure to use code Celio for 5% off. As well, make sure you subscribe to this channel if you have not already for daily Pokemon TCG content. So I played Pikarom for most of the events. I played Luke Metal for 3 and Pikarom for the rest of the 50 qualifying events that we get to play to try to get into Players Cup 3. I ended up with 110 rep, which honestly is lower than I was shooting for, but I was still over a 2 rep per key average, and I believe I'm somewhere in like the top 100 or so in North America, which it doesn't really matter where you are in the top 256 unless you're in the top like 25 or so, because then you have a chance for a bye if people are no shows or get DQ'd or something like that. So I hit 110 rep, so there's really no difference between 256th place and 100th place. So I did pretty well, not as good as I wanted to, but I qualified, and that's what really matters. And I played Pikarom for more than 95% of my events. So that's the deck that we'll be talking about today. I think Pikarom was the best deck in the format for Team Up through Vivid Voltage. And this specific list is the deck that I found was the best out of the best deck in the format. So people did play the double Yell Grunt list a lot, so I definitely want to touch on that. I decided to not play the double Yell Grunt list because while it helped against Eternatus a lot, I found I was still going 50-50 at the worst versus Eternatus, which I was fine with without the Yell Grunts, as well as Big Charm and Chaotic Swell being fairly helpful throughout my qualifiers, and my cuts to add double Yell Grunt would have been the Big Charm and 1 Chaotic Swell. Chaotic Swell was helpful versus Poison Eternatus, Centiskorch, Blacephalon, the occasional Welder Mewtwo. It was actually very helpful versus Eternatus, straight Eternatus that began playing Power Plants, because Mewtwo is the attacker you prefer against Eternatus because of higher HP, the versatility to use either attack, and also Big Charm puts it out of one hit range for Eternatus without Zigzagoons. So Chaotic Swell was super helpful because a lot of Eternatus began running 2 or 3 Power Plants, and if the Power Plant sticks, then that means my Mewtwo with energy on it is useless for the rest of the game. So the Chaotic Swell, the double Swell, was very helpful throughout the 50 events. Tag Switch, I guess, could be another cut, but I think Tag Switch just opened up a lot of plays. It allowed me to play a little safer, but then also have those high roll turn potentials, or like, you know, full blitz to X Pokemon, but next turn, depending on what I get on my research and what my opponent does, I could play Tag Switch for a huge swing turn. So I definitely liked this list. This was what I tested for almost 2 months leading up to the Players Cup 3 to get to this point of this list. And I'm very happy with the results. So I played this to get 110 rep. My mom played this exact list to get 100 rep. And I believe some other people played either this list or the list with a change or two, but really if you make a change or two, it could be anybody's Pikarom list, because everybody's list was so close to each other by the end of Players Cup 3, I think. A card that I really wanted to fit in prior to starting my events was Great Catcher, but I never ended up fitting the Great Catcher in. So yeah, 110 rep with Pikarom, and I earned like 6 of it with Luke Metal, I think, so basically all with Pikarom. The Crushing Hammers I would not cut, because the Crushing Hammers just they give you a little bit of a buffer for variance. So if you're falling a little behind or your opponent high rolls or something, then you have Crushing Hammers, which is another layer of variance, but it can reset what happened or even pull you farther ahead. It's definitely a card that I would not expect to beat Eternatus consistently without hammers in the deck, and then like I said, Yell Grunts make the Eternatus list even better. This helped versus basically every deck, though. Even versus Scorch decks, it helped sometimes because it made them need to hit one extra energy after I put Swell into Okomi or something. So Crushing Hammer helped versus virtually every deck that I came up against. Big Charm was good, wouldn't cut it. Wouldn't cut Swells, wouldn't cut Tag Switch, wouldn't cut any of it. The third Bolt Ton is kind of like the flex spot because it's there for extra consistency, but I think the 3 Bolt Ton is a great number because you want to start it, you want to be able to find it to switch into, and it's also a great attacker throughout multiple points in the game versus just about any deck you can play against. So going into the top 256 portion, or if you're in Oceania, it would be the top 128 portion. I should just call it the regional phase of the Players' Cup 3. There are only slight changes I am currently considering for Pika Rom. So what Shining Fates really adds to the format, because the regional phase will add Shining Fates into standard, it adds Rusted Sword for Zacian. So Rusted Sword makes Zacian do 30 more damage, and this not only makes ADP better against us, it also creates an entire new archetype of straight Zacian, which I've been featuring quite a bit on the channel here and over on my Twitch streams. I do think it eliminates Luke Metal from being tier 1 viable. It might not even be tier 2 in popularity anymore because straight Zacian and ADPZ just get so much better versus Luke Metal with the help of Rusted Sword. So Luke Metal, which was a 50-50-ish matchup, is likely going to be eliminated from the popular ranks of decks. But straight Zacian is an issue for Pika Rom, and ADPZ becomes wherever it was in a gray area of 50-50 is slightly favorable for Pika, is now on the favorable side for ADPZ, in my opinion. So how do we circumvent that? I think we cut one card to add a Big Charm. Like that's where I'm going right now. We don't know how many people are going to actually like straight Zacian, and namely we have to think about what are the upper echelon of players liking with Shining Fates, because we're only playing against the top 256, at least in my part. For North America, I'm only playing against the top 256. So if I were to stay with Pika Rom, which I don't know yet, it's going to be a meta call, we still have a lot of time to decide. If I'm staying with Pika Rom, it depends. Are people respecting Rusted Sword, or are good players saying straight Zacian isn't good enough? I'm going to stick what I played to Players Cup in the qualifiers. I'm going to play to the regional phase. Are the better players, or the players in top 256, not liking ADPZ still? They're saying, you know what, Rusted Sword doesn't do enough for me. I'm sticking with what I played for the qualifiers. Because Shining Fates is not a main set. It really just adds like 2 cards. It adds the Coughing that ascends to Wheezing turn 1, and it adds Rusted Sword. It also adds some other fun stuff like Delmize VMAX, Crobat VMAX, Amazing Rare Reshi. Amazing Rare Reshi could potentially pop up for the regional phase, but I don't think the others will. So the cut I would make is take out 1 card to add a second Big Charm for now. Whether that's going to be the 3rd Bolt Tund or the 2nd Swell. If you don't like Tag Switch too much, it could be the Tag Switch, but I think 2nd Big Charm is going to be the natural response here for now, because it brings Pika Rom up to 270 and resisting 20 from Zacian, so an ADPZ boosted Zacian will need the Rusted Sword to knock it out, and a straight Zacian won't knock it out with just Rusted Sword. So you also buff up the Raichu and the Mewtwo as well, and get it out of range of Rusted Sword with Alter Creation, or Rusted Sword and other things without Alter Creation. So I think Big Charm is the natural response for now to try to keep Pika Rom in tier 1, even if Rusted Sword brings straight Zacian and ADPZ into being some of the best decks. I don't anticipate them being the most popular decks right now, but I'll probably talk more on that both on here and on my Patreon as we get closer to the regional phase of Players Cup 3. So overall, I'm very happy with the deck I played for Players Cup 3, and I'm fairly happy with my rep and my placement for Players Cup 3 qualifiers. I think Pika Rom was the best deck in this format, and we'll have to see if it's still the best deck in the format coming up with Shining Fates. And then, of course, the goal is to make the global finals and get to play with battle styles, which will be quite different than the top 256 and the qualifying formats. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any further questions about the PTCGO list, my thoughts for Players Cup 3 qualifiers, or the regional phase, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you need PTCGO codes, be sure to use code CELIO for 5% off over at PoTownStore.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.